Alrighty, I think we're actually live this time. No introduction music yet, or no opening theme. But I was playing around with these OBS settings, and it's kind of funny. Like a while ago, I tried out the Stream Elements thing, and it disrupted my OBS config. Which, okay, I kind of should have expected that. But anyway, like today and yesterday, it's acting a little differently, and then I did some fixing, and it didn't do anything, and then I opened the OBS the third time, and it was fixed. It's like, I don't know. Anyway, different topic, not really, for customer viewer consumption, I guess, right? So I got something moderately exciting here. I picked up a Sonic pad. Now you might ask, what is a Sonic pad? So I guess I should start from the beginning. Sort of the beginning. It's not the beginning. But basically, I got a 3D printer. Here it is printing right now. And you might notice it's moving very fast. And how is it moving so fast? Well, I'm using the Klipper firmware. But the thing is, there's a story behind this. And I think we're going to record a video right now. Yeah. So let's talk about the story behind how I picked up a Sonic pad for my 3D printer. It all started when a friend and I were discussing the Klipper firmware. Now, in a nutshell, when you own a 3D printer, such as the Creality Ender 3, which I'll show you a picture of that. When you own a 3D printer of this type, I would like to see a large picture. I should probably take my own picture. But anyway, I'll just click on a random one until we get a nice large picture. How does that sound? So here's like a pretty standard config. Okay, this is actually a newer version, I think, right? It's the Ender 3 V2 Neo. And so it's got this like fancier looking thing over here. It comes with the BL Touch, and it looks a bit like Optimus Prime. I own the other V2. Let's go find my V2 because I think it's just more appropriate to yep, there it is. All right, very good. So apparently they've updated the product. So the one I bought was an older one, but basically, yeah, this is what a 3D printer would look like. And I'm just gonna double check some things on my end. Make sure we got the stream is alive. Looks like it's alive. Don't know if it's getting promoted automatically or not. I guess I'm just gonna have to roll with it. Hey, it's Friday night. Maybe people are out having fun tonight. I see Wakizashi's Tea House has something planned tonight. I see Admiral Teague is currently running a live stream. Might have to go end this one and jump over there. I'm just looking at seeing who's got what going on the page here. So that's cool. So anyway, let's get back on topic before I go somewhere else. How about that? Because I'm not gonna go jump the shark just yet. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, 3D printing. All right. So here's a Creality Ender 3 V2 3D printer. This is a newer version, but in a nutshell, you can see the bottom. You have this bed, and essentially what you do is you're taking plastic, or it looks like plastic, a filament, and you're shoving it through a tube, and it gets heated up inside the hot end, and it comes out of this little brass or steel nozzle where, it's just doing it one layer at a time. Boom, 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 like, so it's almost like printing something using a plotter. In fact, you could call it a Z plotter in a sense, because, a plotter draws lines on paper using a crayon, like literally a crayon, and it's just the only difference is it's doing it, with a Z-axis. So it's doing like the X and Y plot on the bed, and then it's moving up one layer and it's doing it again. And that's how, through successive layers, it's able to draw, basically one-dimensional shapes that become a three-dimensional, stack. So anyway, when you get a 3D printer, by default, the internal, and I guess we should get back to the beginning. Okay, so here's a stock Creality Ender 3D printer. And I'm using this to record. In this example, we have a Creality Ender End of 3 version 2 V2 3D printer. It is a slightly newer version, but bottom line is, even the one I have looked a lot like this one here. It had, you know, a USB port, a micro SD card slot, and a screen on the right. And with the built-in firmware, which is basically what runs the components, you know, it's what gives us this menu, basically what allows us to control things through the menu. The firmware is what's, you know, issuing, you know, impulses to the stepper motors, which is what moves across the x-axis, or what allows us to move the y-axis or z-axis. And with these, you know, with the existing firmware, and with many of the popular, you know, firmware that you can, you know, that you can download and install on here, you can get about 50 meters per second. 50 millimeters per second, I'm sorry. So 50 millimeters per second isn't terrible, but when you run it through a slicer like this one here, this would have taken like over 12 hours. In fact, this was going to take, yeah, like over 12 hours to print. Let's see, we'll do it right now. See how many minutes at 50 millimeters per second. This would have taken about, yeah, 11 hours to print. But at 200 millimeters per second, it only takes 6 hours. And if we could do the full 500 millimeters per second, that would be cool. But being conservative here, we might strive for 400 millimeters per second. And I'm sure there's something I'm overlooking here, because I probably need a plug-in or something, but as you can see, it doesn't seem to like that I'm picking this higher speed. And maybe, just maybe, we can trick it. Let me see here. Yeah, that's interesting. It still takes about the same amount of time. I wonder why that is. Maybe it's because I have a ton of infill. I didn't even check my settings for infill. Let's see here. Okay, so good. No supports. Oh, maybe that's a factor. Oh. Maybe. Just maybe that's a factor. 20% infill. So I'll show you what infill looks like. So if we go down the layers and you see this like cuboid or, you know, little pattern here, that is infill. And so if we lower the infill to 0, everything you're looking at here would be a hollow. So essentially it just fills in all of the hollow spaces. 100% infill would be, you know, just solid material, a block of material. And at 20%, given the cubic pattern I selected, this is what we get. And you can pick different patterns. You can pick like simple lines, for example. And let's take a look at what lines look like. You see that it's just a bunch of diagonal lines. Looks like a waffle or something. Or we can do a bunch of crosses, I guess. You know, let's see what that looks like. So in the cross pattern, you get this. And as you can see, it's just, you know, in this case, it's more like vertical, you know, strength. But horizontally, this pattern might not lend a whole lot of strength. And that is why I often choose this type of pattern. As I understand it, this pattern, the cubic pattern, gives you stronger walls. And I can see why. It's also pretty simple for the machine to print. Hey, how you doing, Lemon Pie? Thanks for dropping by. So from the top, I got a Creality End of 3 V2 3D printer, and here's a picture of it on Amazon. And this is the newer version, but you know, we get the spool of filament. It pushes the material through, and it's basically a plotter that has a Z-axis. And look up an architectural plotter, the old type, where it has a literal crayon inside the, you know, nozzle, and you'll see like it's literally drawing circles by moving the paper backwards and forwards and yada yada yada. Hey, what's up, James? Good to see you. So anyway, before I got a 3D printer, why did I buy a 3D printer? My friend convinced me to get one because he was like, you know, tell me how I can print starships. And I was like, I'm not gonna fall for your sweet words, my friend. And so, you know, for example, you know, here's a starship I printed that needs a little more love, but I gotta say I'm pretty proud of the antennas on here. You can see like we got all of the right antennas in all of the right places in the right shape. So all in all, like little crooked from on top, but put it on a display stand and, you know, add the paint over here. I still gotta, you know, rig the entire bottom of this ship, obviously, but not bad, you know. And I got a larger model right over here that I need to do the same work to. I need to paint it, I need to sand it, prime it, paint it. Homer Simpson reference. Waffles. So anyway, my friend was trying to convince me that way, and I said, oh, but I don't want to be bothered with leveling the printer, because see these little screws here? These are knobs that move a threaded screw in order to elevate or reduce the height of each corner. And, you know, this is important because this nozzle has to be a consistent distance from the bed in order for things to adhere to the printer bed. And that is why my 3D printer bed looks so filthy. Here, let's take a look at my 3D printer. Oh, good God. Okay, we might not have success in high-speed printing. It's moving fast. It's moving fast. In fact, I gotta send this to my buddy. Oh, he's gonna love this. Oh, where's my buddy when you need him? I'm sending him a link to the YouTube video right now. Give me 2 seconds, guys. I gotta send my boy this link right now before it All right, Google Chat. Come on. Come. See me now. See me now. No, I'm kidding. Come see this now. I'm testing Klipper right now as we speak. All right, I told my homeboy to go see me testing out Klipper. Oh, yeah, so I didn't even explain to you guys what Klipper was, did I? Okay, so on a 3D printer, you have a firmware. Just like on a printer, just like on a CD drive, you know, the firmware is the built-in software that allows things to be controlled. So on a printer, this is what moves the print head around. This is what tells you that your ink is low. On a CD drive, this is what responds when you press the eject button, like it's telling the door to open. On a 3D printer, there's two methodologies. One of them is where you put your print model or whatever, your G code onto a SD card, and you put it in the printer, and you let its internal motherboard, you know, command the motors to do their thing. But the Klipper methodology is basically a two-part setup where you have the Klipper firmware running on the printer, and this renders the little built-in LCD screen on your 3D printer useless. And so instead, you're plugging a Raspberry Pi or some kind of external computer that's way more powerful than the printer's own built-in computer, and you can get much faster printing speeds this way, and you can do things like calibrate it a certain way. I had to put an acoustic sensor on my printer in order to allow Klipper to measure harmonic resonance or acoustic resonance, so that when the motors are moving, they vibrate a certain way. It's able to account for that, and in order to like allow us to print faster. And so I wasn't expecting this print to be completely successful, but it looks like it's really trying. It looks like it really botched the infill, and it looks like the outer wall might still be okay. Had I just let it print at a slower speed, this would have been fine. But of course, the goal is high-speed printing. And yeah, I sent the link to my buddy so that they can see this if they want to see it, or show it to him later on. And real quick to the chat, I was watching Jack Resider video about spam networks. Interesting stuff. My brother used to work for Experian, and they were just a credit score company. Apparently, a big part of his job while working for Experian was keeping their junk mail one step ahead of the spam filters. They had to figure out like what words can you put into the junk mail, you know, to let it through the filter. You know. Oh, I forgot to turn my lights up. Let's turn the lights up. We want more light. Let there be light. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Here comes the sun, George Harrison. And so anyway, that's interesting. It's kind of depressing to learn about junk mail, but you're welcome to drop a link because maybe I'll check it out later. And maybe the Jack guy is a good guy and I should check out his content. Ooh, there's a Stream Elements button that I've never used. Let's see if we could try something cool. You didn't publish any elements yet. All right. Then in that case, I'm not publishing any elements. Okay, I'm sorry. There was a cool button. It looked cool. All right, so I digress. Focus. I'm easily distracted. Have you guys ever noticed that? There we go. I gotta definitely make some extra OBS profiles for when I'm streaming versus when I'm solo streaming. Anyway, so bottom line is that that's what happens. So you use an external computer like a Raspberry Pi, which, you know, I mean, isn't much to see right here because it's an enclosure. This is actually an old model, but the idea is it's issuing commands to the USB ports, like directly to the printers. It's instructing the printer to do every little thing. And some people argue that no, all of the work should be handled on the printer side, and some people argue no, why not take advantage of this really powerful, you know, computing device? And I think there's merit to both points of view. Like, if I was in the middle of like nowhere and I needed to keep things simple, maybe it would be better to have the slower, you know, method. But then again, if I was in a, you know, random third world country, I'd probably want to save electricity by having faster printing. I don't know. I'm just speculating here. So yeah, in a nutshell, that is the Klipper firmware right there in action. Should I cancel the print? Should I let it keep going? I think I'm going to let it keep going. My biggest concern right now with using this, I didn't even show you guys the Sonic pad. So this is the thing. So you would use a Raspberry Pi, but I found a Sonic pad for like, you know, $118, which I'm pretty sure that's a good price. And this is basically, instead of me setting up the Raspberry Pi, I would utilize this. And this thing would automatically flash the firmware on my printer. And as it turned out, the reason I wasn't successful setting up Klipper on my own was because I was using the wrong firmware. All I had to do was download the right firmware and flash it to the printer's internal motherboard. And the problem was I was too lazy to flip the printer over because I have this thing inside of a Mylar tent. So I don't really have any desire to pick the entire rig up and flip it upside down, you know? I just don't want to do that. Like, you got to pick this up and flip it upside down, get a screwdriver, remove the motherboard cover, and look at the version number, which is 4.27, which is just a bit above 4.2.2, which is why I didn't get Klipper. So hypothetically, I might not have needed to buy this device had I simply, you know, had the right firmware version. On the other hand, this device does take out a lot of the guessing work, and even though you could rely on the official updates and, you know, maybe have a reduced functionality, it looks like you can totally use, you know, customized stuff. You can edit the config files. I don't really think there's any issue in that regard. In fact, I found the most useless thing about using the Sonic pad was the Creality Cloud, which is, I mean, it's the Chinese company anyway. But that would theoretically let you sign in from the little tablet, download 3D models, and then go and print them straight away. And that's not so bad, but it didn't really work. And I'm already accustomed to just opening up the slicer like Cura, and basically you tell it, upload it to my printer and start printing. And you can monitor the print over here. And one of my complaints right now is the camera. I don't like that I'm getting like serious tearing. You know, you can just see like how the bottom moves slower than the top in the video frame. And I think I can install a custom camera, whatever you call it, like stack. But of course, that's even more effort. You know, one of the reasons I bought this was so that I could just keep it like simple. You know, it's like I plug this thing in. And some things I like about it. Like, so for example, when you're calibrating it, setting up the Z offset is pretty straightforward. What I don't like about setting up the Z offset, which is basically when you tell it to move the nozzle further away or closer to the bed in order to get everything calibrated, is that every time you change the Z offset, you got to reboot the whole thing. So you got to reboot it, then preheat it again. And I'm just like, why do I have to reboot it? Like, with my old firmware, I could change the Z-axis offset by turning a knob. And I'm not saying I should do that, but, you know, I mean, hypothetically, I should be able to issue a command that moves it up and down. Which, this is interesting, by the way. Yeah, a lot of, like, these 3D printer utilities will have, like, an area where you can issue commands during the print. And it's probably a bad idea, like, to be able to issue commands while it's printing. Like, they should probably have, like, a fail-safe or a padlock on it. And what's up, David Glenn? Good to see you. And, James says, I have a short story about torque converters. Apparently, the vanes on the very early ones were a bit rough. The people assembling them thought that they would work better if the vanes were smooth. So they polished all of the vanes. Unfortunately, they were wrong, and the smooth vanes did not work at all. I'm not sure about all these cloud services. Well, look, I mean, I'd say cloud can be a tool, but I do have, yeah, like, I think it's sad that some people, like the other day, like not of the day, like a couple of years ago, I was at work, and I'm looking up what a torque converter is because I don't really have a concept. A couple of years ago, I'm at work, and this guy's talking about, you know, storing his pictures. And I mean, logically, get a couple of external hard drives, you know, maybe get 2 external hard drives, you know, but you should have your data stored in duplicate. And the other coworker is like, oh, well, why don't you just store it in the cloud? You know, it's like, yeah, it's easy. It's omnipresent as long as your Google account is accessible and you know, secure your password and you don't give your password out and you have your 2-factor authentication set up correctly, then, you know, that should be fine to keep your stuff in the cloud. And if you're totally okay with, you know, your pictures being used to train, you know, AI machine learning models and all of that, you know, these are things that, like, you know, if you have informed consent or whatever, then I don't see an issue. And if somebody, you know, and I mean, it's a mixed bag. Like, on one angle, you give people shit for not reading the terms and conditions when signing up for a Google account. But, like, at the same time, it's like these agreements, these things are obscenely long, you know, a lot of legal language in them. So it's kind of like one of these things where people just they kind of YOLO it, right? Like, oh, I'll just sign up with the account. I agree, you know? And you just wait and you see what happens, you know? Like a lot of things people complain about, yes, maybe certain rules are enforced unevenly, but I mean, it wasn't really a secret when people signed up. But getting back on topic, yeah, so I'm looking at a picture of a torque converter, and I believe it has something to do with that guy from the Spanish Inquisition. Torquemada. What are you talking about? And it looks like it converts torque. It actually looks like a clutch doing some stuff in there or something. I mean, like, you know, I wish I had more of a concept of what these do. I mean, I'm thinking transmissions. I mean, if that looks like a transmission component right there, just a way to, like, to get the where the lubricant is supposed to flow through there, and it's got certain thermal characteristics. That looks like a pump. Turbine pump. Is this a turbo? That is a tranny right there. A transmission. Under the skin, why torque converters coming back from the dead? Auto car. And why don't they have manual mobiles? We got automobiles, but why don't we have manual mobiles, you know? I mean, is that just a bike? So anyway, I'm not so sure about these. Yeah, so, oh yeah, he said that. Wendell level 1 text points out the obvious. There is no cloud, only someone else's computer. Correct. Nobody ever expects the Spanish Inquisition. Thanks, Dave. Torque converter, the thing, instead of a clutch, use automatic transmissions instead of manual. Oh, okay. I did not. So that's all, not all it is, but that's basically the distinguishing factor. Okay, that makes a lot of sense now. Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, like, yeah, it is somebody else's computer. I remember, like, look, I mean, it's cool if you like using AWS, you like doing this, that, and the third, by all means, have fun, you know, but don't tell me that, you know, like, this is magic. Like, yes, Kubernetes, I believe they're called, you know, this thing where you can spin up instances very rapidly and spin them down and, you know, whatever. That's kind of cool, you know. But I guess it depends on what your usage case is. Like, I've used DigitalOcean before, and that I think their services were pretty useful for $5 a month, or if I want to pay more, I could. I had access to remote computing resources that I could do practically whatever I wanted. I think it was a virtualized instance. I wasn't paying for a dedicated server, but I could have my way. So it was like if I need a remote Linux box that I can just, you know, maybe run Apache on, or share some files on it, or run my own little VPN instance, something, you know, it could be done off of that, you know, so that was kind of cool. But at the same time, like, if I was using like a external web host, I don't think it hurts for people to have some kind of backup of anything they're doing, you know, like have a non-cloud backup. And so with data storage, it's nice to have like someone else maintaining the server rack with the RAID array. I mean, heck, like I have to, you know, like do some work on my ZFS pool. Sometimes something goes wrong with my network cables. A vacuum cleaner has an altercation with a network cable, and my network gets slow. In this case, I think we'll just cycle that. You know, things happen, but you know, we take not Rumble. What's that one called? Parlay. I think Parler, you would post a parlay on Parler. Well, you know, he saw what happened there, and you know, they got a bunch of hit pieces published at the same time that Amazon was, you know, just saying F you. And they were kind of stupid for not maintaining backups. And maybe this is because when you're running your site off AWS, at least in the manner that they were running their website, perhaps there was no practical way to, you know, maintain a backup that could be easily offloaded somewhere else where you can, you know, just get the site back up and running. But unfortunately, they did business with a company that, I mean, I guess the move was unprecedented. So there's that. Hey, what's up, Lorenzo Sleestack? Good to see you. Also good to see Slim Nim and the Padawannabe. Torque gives you more pounds per square inch of a thing. Torque makes you quick off the line. And I know, like, you know, you got foot pounds as a unit of measurement. I am not familiar with Monty Python at all. If I didn't know any better, I would have thought he was a snake, like a literal snake, you know, like a python snake, you know. But apparently he's a comedian from England or Britain or whatever they call their land. Or a torque wrench gives you leverage, if you can think of it that way. Yeah, torque. I've been wanting to get a torque wrench. I don't absolutely need one, but I do like the idea of how did I run out of hard drive space recording video for a half hour? All right. Did I save the stream? Is it